Hello everyone. Today this part is going to go through control statuses for the enemy AI. First we have slow, which will slow not only the movement, but the play rate for the animations and the montages of the enemy when affected. Then we have stun and sleep. Both work similar to each other, however sleep will allow the enemy to be inactive for a longer time, but be interrupted by damage, whereas stun will be a shorter duration and ignore damage. So much like the last video, I have the keyboard events that set my overlay and the type of status that we're going to affect our enemies with. I bound it to 1, 2, and 3 for slow, stun, and sleep respectively. And in the combat enemy, I've already made the events. Now, I'm going to go through in a future video and get all of these timers into the game instance, so then we can have this scale up to be more than just a few enemies and have it be performant. But for right now, we're going to continue on with the combat enemy. We're going to start off with our slow event first. And I've seen a lot of people when they go and try to do slow, they will get a time dilation. And the problem with using time dilation, whether that be world or custom, is that with this combat variant, if we were to lower the time dilation, and we go and apply our status, we have this issue where obviously the character's floating in the air. If we have stun and we set the time dilation to 0, it looks like it works, however it's stuck in that launch state. So after we have the whatever delay we want to have for our time dilation, they just go flying. So that may work if you want to have a sci-fi Mass Effect style stasis for the character to be stunned or slowed and the physics around them to be as well, but we're not going to end up using this. So for slowed, we're going to take the character's movement and we're going to set their max walk speed. And instead we're going to set that to be 100. We're going to have a re-triggerable delay, so then if we apply slowed multiple times, it will refresh the duration. I'm going to set this to a long duration just for testing at 20 seconds. Then we'll set it back to 600. And you'll see if we have the bounding box so the enemy can attack us, throw a slow, they are slowed down. And when they go into the evading and they go into attacking, you can see they run up and they're able to attack at normal pace, but their walk speed is still at 100. This is because if we take a look at the combat enemy's state tree, which is st_combat enemy, we can see their move to flanking point is setting the character speed. And if we were to open that, it's using speed instead of the character's walk speed. So we can disconnect speed and we'll just get the max walk speed. And it may seem redundant, but we want to set it to be whatever our max speed is. And you can also edit this how you want. If you want the character to be able to run a bit faster than what our slow would have, up to you. And now, when the character does run up to us, they're going to keep about the same speed. So now they're attacking, they're moving at that speed, and they can punch at their normal rate. So at least as far as this goes, the attack rate is based on the montages. The combo attack montage. So a simple way we could do, if you do have a character with a lot of montages, we can get the play rate. I will need it for the charge attack montage, and we'll also need it for the normal attack montage to do AI combo attack. And we can simply set the play rate to 0.2. And then when this is over, we'll set it back to its normal value. And that's pretty simple. If you wanted to have the actual animation slowed down, not just having the walk speed slowed, you would have to go into the animation graph. You can also fool around with the locomotion states. If we take the play rate and you click bind and expose it as a pin, you'll be able to cast the play rate to your animation graph and affect it here. Granted, it's not going to be a one-to-one difference. So if we lower it to half, see the character is kind of gliding a little bit. You may have to work with the animations, but if we slow it down to 0.2, like how our play rate is, it's not going to look quite natural. So now it does look a bit natural because we are changing the speed to be max for our ground speed. So in our event graph where we calculate the ground speed, you can see that it is directly factored by our velocity. If we were to cast, we could get the slowed status here. And we'll make a new boolean. We'll just call it slowed. Then take it off after the delay. In our event graph, we need to cast to our combat character. Sorry, our combat enemy. And we can promote that to a variable. So we're going to get a validated get. If it's not valid, we're just going to go with the ground speed as normal. If it is valid, we're going to check to see if we're slowed. Since this is in 5.7, we can right click and convert it to a branch. If we're not slowed, we'll set the ground speed to be whatever it is. Otherwise, we can change it to B or max. Okay, and then next we want to do the same thing for the play rate. Then we'll want to get the play rate. Can make a little bit more room. Promote our play rate to a variable. And on false. So now with this, as we move along, we may also want to just have the play rate be 1. And on our play rate, we'll just go and connect our logic. So now, the way our character moves around, so we're able to slow an enemy, and you can see that it is completely slowed. There. So now we get to stun, and stun is a bit easier, especially for the AI. Now, you could go through the same thing of just set the max walk speed to 0 and have a boolean in the character to effectively shut off all the abilities. But because we're working with NPCs for this, all we actually need to do is stop the logic of the AI controller. So we will get AI controller, the controlled actor, let's get a reference to self, then we want to get the brain component. So this already has a built-in AI. All we need to do is just call stop logic. And for debug reasons, you can have a string set here. I'm just going to say stunned. Then we'll get a delay. Usually it's poor form to just keep stun locked if we have an ability that doesn't have any cooldowns. And then after that, we'll just start logic. One thing to note is when we do stop the logic, it's going to continue doing whatever process it may be doing with the montages. So if we want to knock it out of the montage, all we would need to do is just call stop animontage. That way, if we stun an enemy in the middle of their attack, leaving the montage as none just stops whatever montage is currently going on. So you can see it turned the logic off. It had that debug print that comes up for the text in the state tree. That disappeared because the state tree is not running for that time. So last we're going to be going over sleep. And sleep is an effect that works pretty much like stun, except we want to be able to interrupt it with damage. So with that, we're going to copy most of what we have here in practice. We have a stop and start logic for the AI. We're going to stop the anim montage, but first we're just going to call sleep off of the effect. And we're going to be making a new boolean, and we're going to be calling this sleeping. And eventually, when we move these into the game instance, we're going to be setting these up as tags instead of booleans, so we don't have to keep worrying about all these booleans being tracked through multiple characters. But for right now, we'll just get a branch, and condition is going to be whether or not the actor is sleeping. Make sure that the variable is false by default. So if they are, and this is received, we're going to set it to be false. Otherwise, we're going to set this to be true. We can copy our start and stop logic. We're going to be starting the logic. And stopping the logic. And because this is interruptible, we can't just use a delay, so we are going to set a timer for its expiration. And this event is going to be our sleep proc. And we just want a single timer of 15 seconds, non-looping. And we'll promote the timer to a handle. And we'll call it the sleep timer. So we can get our brain component. And we can get an is running, which will tell us exactly if the logic is currently stopped or not. So after 15 seconds, if we are running the AI logic, then we're going to do nothing. Otherwise, we're going to call start logic off of false. And we're going to take our sleeping to be false as well. After this timer hits, we're going to also stop our enemies' animations if they have any running. And we can take the reason and change that to sleeping. Okay, so with this setup, there is one tiny problem. So if we were to hit the enemy while they are asleep, it will wake them up. But if we were to not hit the enemy while asleep, they stay asleep. That is because when we are setting up this way, we're only sending the signal for sleep, so we need to be able to do the same thing with damage. However, if we just apply the damage, we're going to get into a race condition of applying sleep as our attack also does damage. So what we'll need to do is set up a gate and have it so then we can only apply sleep or wake from damage and not both at the same time. So we're going to go into our construction script and we're going to bind an event on any damage. And we're going to create an event and we're going to create a matching event. That will create a new event that we could drag over to our sleep. And we can name it whatever you want. I'm going to have it be wake from damage. And we'll disconnect our sleep. And we're going to need to get a gate. And we want to make sure that this is not starting closed. So very simply, we're going to copy our sleeping branch for both of these. And we're going to apply sleep if sleep is set to false, and that will be our enter condition. And we're going to get a sequence right after another branch for seeing if sleeping is true. Then we're going to connect 0 and 1 to enter and open. And it may not be necessary, but just in case this does cause a race condition, we're going to get a very small delay. And keeping everything else as is. We hit, we apply sleep. We hit when sleep turns the logic back on. If we're to turn off our status effects and apply damage, we wake the character from sleep again. So the last thing we need to do is add a little bit of interoperability between our stun and sleep, because they both stop and then start the logic. It is possible that we set the target to sleep, and then when we hit them with stun, it doesn't apply the stun status, because when we either wake on damage or we try to apply sleep again, it's going to stop the logic, because stun only has 2 hops before we get to the stop logic, and then there's a bit more to get to the start logic again. So it's going to look like the AI brain was never turned off. So we need to leverage the use of our gate. So then when we stun, we close the gate. So then our wake from damage doesn't open it. But also, if the gate is closed, we won't be able to open it if we're sleeping. So at the end of our stun, we need an event that goes to open the gate. Show you what I mean. When we send the enemy to sleep and then we hit them with stun, they're able to immediately act. So we'll make a custom event, and we'll call it close sleep. We'll attach that to the close execute, and we'll make another one called open sleep and connect that to the open. So for stun, we can close sleep, and at the end we'll call open sleep. Now when we hit an enemy with sleep, the AI is going to turn off, and it's not going to turn back on until the stun timer is done after 3 seconds. Now we can't do the inverse because we have a delay, but if you did set up a timer much in the same way for sleep, we could get the same thing happening with stun if you went through the same gate setup as we already did. Thank you all for watching the video. I know a good chunk of this, if not all, could be consolidated into the game instance. I wanted to go through a Gaslight setup for statuses and a more in-depth tutorial on using the game instance, optimization, and consolidating timers, but I figured this would be a good start since it works well in small projects, and I can show how to scale it from the basics here. So, look forward to doing this all over again in a future video sometime, but for now I want to thank the pillars for their support as always: Winterberry Shark, K-Panic, Shay Alexander, and Wolfpaws, and to everyone else who has supported me as well. Again, I think that you're all awesome. Check out the links in the description for the Patreon and the coffee shop for exclusive content, projects, animations, tutoring, and so on. And if you like the video, let me know by liking the video, let YouTube know by liking the video, and subscribe if you like to see content like this. So, that being said, I wish you all a good day, and I hope you've been inspired.